Hi, so today's recording is the follow up for the previous podcast about fixation. So today we will talk about fixation. Let's start with the help of an example. Picture a river flowing steadily downstream. Along its journey, it passes through many landscapes, mountains, forests, valley. Now imagine that in one of these valleys, the river gets dammed. It still moves, but part of its water swirls endlessly in that one spot, unable to flow forward. That swirling pool is like psychological fixation. Today, we are diving into fixation in Freud's psychosexual theory, what it means and how it happens, why it matters, and how we can respond when we notice it in ourselves or others. Now, what does fixation mean? In Freud's view, human development passes through five psychosexual stages: oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. At each stage, different drives, needs, and conflicts emerge. When development goes smoothly, we transition from one stage to another. But fixation is like getting stuck. A person may grow up physically, but emotionally, part of them stays tied to an earlier stage. For instance, an oral fixation might show up in a habit like excessive eating or smoking or nail biting, or in traits like dependency on seeking constant reassurance. An anal fixation could reveal itself in extreme orderliness, stubbornness, or the opposite, messiness and lack of control. A phallic fixation might lead to struggle with identity, competitiveness, or seeking validation. So, fixation isn't just a childhood thing, it shapes adult personality. Let's understand how does fixation happen. So, if we talk about a traveler moving through towns, each town represents a stage of development, offering unique experience. If the traveler is treated well, they refuel, rest, and continue. If they are indulged too much comfort, or underserved, which is too much hardship, they may refuse to leave, or they may leave physically but keep longing for what was missing. Psychologically, fixation happens when need are over gratified or under gratified during a developmental stage. For example, a baby whose needs for oral stimulation is overindulged, always pacified with food, may grow overly dependent on oral comforts later in life. A toddler punished harshly during toilet training might carry a lifelong fixation with control, rules, or rigidity. It's the psych's way of saying, I didn't resolve this stage fully, so I'll keep circling back here. What are the causes of fixation? Several roots can explain why a fixation forms. Parenting style, strictness, neglect, or overindulgence can all set the stage. Environment, constant change, instability, or trauma can freeze development. Unmet needs. If essential emotional needs like safety, affection, or autonomy aren't met, the child clings to the stage where they first felt that need most strongly. Let's talk about this mini story, okay? Think of a child who, during the oral stage, found comfort only in sucking their thumb because parents weren't emotionally present. That thumb becomes more than just a habit, it becomes their pointer or leading mechanism. As an adult, the same person might over rely on alcohol, cigarettes, or even people for reassurance. How do we understand fixation? Fixation isn't about blaming parents or childhood, it's about recognizing how our past echoes in our present. If someone is overly controlling, we might ask, is this about the anal stage where control was overemphasized? If someone constantly seeks approval, maybe it ties back to unresolved dynamics in the phallic stage. If someone struggles to form mature, intimate bonds, perhaps they never fully navigated earlier fixations. Understanding fixation helps us shift perspective. Instead of seeing traits as flaws, we see them as adaptations or creative solutions the mind once used to survive. Now, how do we respond when fixation is identified? This is where compassion and growth meet. Responding might involve awareness. The first step is notice the pattern without judgment. I see this controlling behavior might be a remnant of something earlier. Reflection, ask what need was left unmet here. Fixation is a signpost pointing towards an old wound. Therapy and exploration. With professional help, people can revisit those unmet needs in a safe space. Therapy allows re experiencing and resolving those conflicts. Healthy substitutes instead of biting nails, that is oral fixation. One might practice mindfulness or chewing gum instead of rigid control, anal fixation, learning flexibility in safe environments. Let's take another example. A manager who is overly rigid with the employees might realize this is tied to a fixation on control. With support, they can practice loosening their grip, trusting others, and finding freedom to delegate the tasks. Now, fixation reminds us that the past is never fully past. It lingers, shapes us, and sometimes holds us back. But awareness is the key. Once we see where we got stuck, we can gently guide ourselves forward. It is not about erasing or hiding childhood, it's about integrating it, giving the river back its flow. So, when we encounter behaviors that seem puzzling, our own or others, we can ask, what story from the past is speaking here? That question can transform judgment into empathy and stuckness into growth. And that's today's deep dive on fixation. In the next episode, we'll explore how these fixations can influence relationships and workplace behavior. Because sometimes the child within us shows up most clearly in how we love and how we work. Thank you for listening.